Hey guys, in this video I'll be doing a preview of the upcoming 2024 New York Pro with two of the top contenders, Nick Walker and Martin Fitzwater. I'll be mainly using Nick's 1 week out guest posing footage from the 2024 Pittsburgh Pro, and for Martin I'll be using his Detroit Pro and as well the 1 week out Pittsburgh Pro footage. I want to see if Martin actually poses a threat to Nick, the clear favorite to win the New York Pro, or if Nick would actually just dominate. Now, before the video does start, a like and sub would be much appreciated as it helps out the channel tremendously. With that all being said though, let's get into this video. Alright, the first pose, the front double, is an interesting pose as both have complete opposite strong points. Martin has a small sucked in waistline resulting in a great V-taper, massive full and swept quads, and an upper hand in overall aesthetics. On the other hand, Nick has some of the best biceps and triceps in the game, huge lats, and so much freak factor and size. Something that I noticed about Nick, which isn't something that I noticed in the past, is that he has a serious imbalance in his left and right arms. His right arm looks less peaky in the biceps and his triceps appear less rounded in that area. However, this could be due to posing, things like that. Now, speaking of the arms, he does utterly destroy Martin, having twice as much peak to the biceps and tons more separation. That being said, this is the only area I would give to Nick as his midsection is really wide, his quads lack any sweep and are slightly asymmetrical as well, and his overall aesthetics are garbage. As much as I do like Nick's freakiness, I'd go with Martin for his more complete, well-rounded look. Unfortunately, we have to use this non-HD footage for some poses, however, in the front lat spread, small details aren't necessarily needed to judge the pose. Nick's structure is just so unpleasing here, and you can clearly see that his wide midsection is on full display, whereas Martin has such a pleasing flow in a smaller midsection. Interestingly, both showcase similar lat coverage and clavicle width. However, Martin's superior posing and smaller waist help create a more, impressive V-taper. Nick's quads don't look nearly as bad as they did in the high-resolution footage. However, Martin's outer quad sweep is much more pronounced and helps create a rounder, fuller look. I'm actually very impressed with Nick's presentation though relative to his older variations, as he actually doesn't look as uncomfortable in this pose as he did in the past. All in all though, Martin's silhouette is miles ahead of Nick, and he would definitely win this one in my opinion. The side chest is one of Nick's best poses as his huge upper body always draws tons of attention and his side leg from the side is definitely one of the best in the game. In contrast, I never thought that this was one of Martin's best poses, however he does have some standout attributes. His chest, delts, and side leg are all world class and he does present immense fullness and thickness in these areas as well. While Martin is shockingly good in this pose against Nick, Nick has a thickness advantage that is only exacerbated through his posing. Interestingly, his side leg does appear to be bigger than Martin's, who has one of the best in the business. And overall, while the pose is pretty close, I do prefer Nick's more opened up posing style, as he showcases more width upstairs and similar size in the bottom half, while not sacrificing much detail anywhere. To be fair, Martin's tight and controlled waist contrasts with Nick's more bloated and just not as pleasing one, which could give Martin an upper hand on stage. Here's the rear double, a pose which many consider to be one of Nick's best and a pose which many draw similarities to Phil Heath for Martin. Immediately, I am drawn to Martin for his bubbly, three-dimensional back as it quite literally pops off his frame and looking downstairs only furthers his wow factor. Nick has a great rugged sort of look to the pose as he has a very dry, detailed look to his back. He is wider upstairs, has the better set of arms and delts, and similar development all around. His legs, while not as detailed due to him being a week out, are still absolutely massive and similarly shredded. If I had to bet on who's winning in the pose in a week, I'd probably go with Nick. He's wider with a fuller, more detailed look, and he'll probably take this pose home. Martin is extremely proportional and impressive, no doubt. However, his arms are not nearly as large and his back isn't as wide. The rear lat spread is actually going to be a very debatable pose as Martin's three-dimensional back comes to life and the width disparity between them isn't as glaring as before. Obviously, Nick has one more week of dieting, carbing, and polishing to do. However, I personally wasn't as impressed with Nick's 1 week out conditioning as I thought I would be. His rear lat spread is, definitely not the best pose for him, and he really does showcase not the most amount of detail within the back and only has the width advantage in my opinion. The legs are definitely going to be close between the two as Nick has so much size, while Martin is ripped to the bone. As it is though, I'd probably lean towards Martin for his superb back development, detail, and pronunciation to the musculature. However, Nick might have the size, width, and conditioning to beat Martin in 1 week. Here's the side tricep, and once again we have to use this very terrible footage. From it though, you can see that Nick has the superior tricep between the two. I'd go as far as to say that Nick has a better arm-delt combo as well. However, his major weakness, which you all probably can notice, is that huge midsection. While he normally controls it perfectly, here it seems a bit bloated and wider than usual. However, take it with a grain of salt as it is a guest posing. Martin looks pretty decent, presenting some pretty good fullness in the chest, great detail in the midsection, and a similar sized delt. However, his tricep isn't nearly as good as Nick's. Now, in terms of their side legs, I prefer Nick's presentation, as his hamstring is more noticeable and his quad showcases more detail. I like what Martin is doing, especially with the trailing calf. However, he really isn't a Dorian Yates in the total package. I'd probably go with Nick, however, if he can't control that waistline, I'm gonna go with Martin. The Aban Thigh is a pose which Nick, although lacking the trademark factors to make a great Aban Thigh pose, absolutely wills his way through. While his waist is wide, he has some of the best ab muscle development in the current circuit, presenting bricks for abs, and his wide flaring lats help create a surprisingly good taper. His quads, while not the most swept, are massive to say the least. They are also very cut and freaky due to the tremendous vascularity, and overall he looks great. Martin has a more traditional look, presenting a smaller waist, solid ab and midsection detail, great quads which are feathered in good footage, and comparable lat flare. In my opinion, Nick does appeal more to me not for any aesthetic reason, but more so for the freaky mass monster look. While Martin is more conventionally aesthetic, streamlined, and proportional, Nick, through sheer willpower alone with mass as well, might just take this pose. The last pose, the most muscular, is thankfully in high resolution, and I'm just going to replay it over and over as they hit two different variations. The freak factor of Nick is really on full display, as his arms, chest, and delts are cut, massive, and detailed. While his midsection is wide, his boulder shoulders compensate for it, creating a very nice illusion of superb width. He does appear a bit top heavy, as his quads aren't the most swept or freaky. However, he does have some good size and separation overall. Martin is great, as his delts are super round, his arms don't look bad at all, and his proportions are pretty solid. His midsection is controlled, detailed, and small, and his quads are cut, feathered, and swept to perfection. I will say that Martin doesn't have the same levels of striation in the chest as Nick does, nor does he have that same freak factor or sheer size. However, he looks really grainy and great overall in my opinion. While both do look really good, I personally think I'm going in favor of Nick for his sheer size and freakiness, as those are the attributes which really make for a top tier most muscular. Alright guys, that's about it for this video. In short, I feel like this might not be as much of a slam dunk victory for Nick in New York as I had previously thought. While Nick is massive, conditioned, and freaky, his waist is only widening and his proportions are a bit off. Now, I have no doubt that Nick is going to come in even better in a week. However, Martin might just bring an even better package than in Detroit and potentially push Nick hard. We'll just have to see how much Nick can improve within this next week, as this comparison really sets up a great storyline between the possible 1 and 2 finishers at the New York Pro. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and let me know down below who you prefer in the comments. With that all being said though, I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.